Hey everyone, welcome back to
Our life having conversation.
And this is episode number 31. Let me check real quick. Yeah, 31. We've been going for 31 episodes. That's 31 weeks. We've been catching up Well, you live with me, I live with you. But we've been doing these intros. How cool is that?
Cool.
Guess who I talked to today?
Todd.
Yeah, Todd's been a regular. He's a good dude. And today we talked about parenting and what's like parenting, what we learned being parented as kids when we were younger, and things were changed, things were brought forward, and kind of the concept of trying to create enough space in your life so you can parent the way you really want to. Does that sound cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you guys want to say?
No.
What are we doing this weekend?
Going to Melbourne.
Yeah.
For my birthday.
Yeah, how old are you? Yeah, you're going to be 8. How crazy is that? And then
8.
Ruby's next. You're in January. How old are you going to be, Rube?
6.
Yeah. And I'm in February. And how old am I going to be?
40.
40. And then Kat's in March. How old is she going to be?
40.
Yeah. All right, let's say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everyone, welcome back to I Would Like to Have a Conversation. Hey Todd, what's happening? Quick shout out before we start. Sandy, I know you're listening because you always do. You always send me a video and I stitched you up. Didn't realize I didn't have notifications on, and there was like 7 videos banked up. So I watched them all last night, and they were, as always, they're always really cool and really good insights. They go for like 2 minutes, and she shares some cool stories. And I think it was off the Build for Adventure podcast. This is a health one, but she did talk about, like, I've been talking about the 5-minute thing for so long. I taught it to her ages ago, and she taught it to a friend at her school, and she hadn't seen that person for like 2-3 years. She's like down 10 kilos, now ready to run a marathon, all this kind of stuff, just from building in these 5-minute habits, which kind of flows into, because she's like, this lady was a parent. I was talking about how hard it is being a parent. And it's kind of like the topic of this podcast is like, parenting is hard. Or is it? I was thinking about it last night when I was, yesterday when I was training. I was like, I have to throw the or is it in there? Only because of like how we've always talked about it. It's like whatever the story we play out in our head is the story it's going to be. But yeah, parenting is hard. I can't, like,
Or is it?
it is. Like, if we've got to say, like, it can be challenging, I think, obviously. But I think it's something that, it's kind of weird. Now that I've said it, it's like, now what are we talking about?
Well, I was thinking the same thing, but then I realized that there's a number of ways to approach this, and you know, as somebody who, like consider myself a scientist, my brain always goes to, the developing brain of the children, and if we have a better understanding of what's happening during that process, then I think as adults will help ourselves and the kids navigate those tough times. But I mean, this is such a loaded thing, because for me and very personal, because for me, a big part of my story is how I just didn't want it to, I didn't want my childhood to be similar to I didn't want my kid's childhood to be similar to mine in the sense, and part of that is going to be their experience, right? And how they interpret those things, and then how we help them navigate therapy or things later on. But yeah, I mean, it's hard in the sense if you don't. I'll start with this. It's hard if you don't know who you are. And if you don't have a really good understanding of who you are and how you show up in this world. And that's what the last 8 years has been for me. And I continue to figure out how to get to that place. And so I'll use an example of why, even for me, I might consider it hard. Like the other day, yesterday, we were waiting for the bus, and we always bring a soccer ball. And it always like I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my 7-year-old is always pushing those boundaries, right? And I try to encourage them, hey, like the road's right here, you have a stronger foot than your brother. And I'm sharing all this because you may see where this is going. Before the bus comes, there's been multiple times where like he's either popping it into the road, okay, and it's not safe for the drivers or for us. Or yesterday, what happened is he blasted it and nailed his brother right in the face. Okay. And I will share that, like, and you're right, it was an accident. He didn't like mean it, but in my brain, I want to control things, and I'm that control freak. And so I didn't actually freak out. Okay. I know that I made him feel like crap, but instead of blowing up like I used to, I caught myself, but I still just like, I couldn't stop myself from saying something to him. But in hindsight, there was nothing that needed to be said. I just needed to make sure that the little man was okay, and that, big man understands that, hey, these small spaces, we gotta understand like our own energy and how powerful we are. Anyways, everything's fine. I responded much better, but all day I did carry around a ton of guilt and shame, because it's still not at the level that I want to show up at. Like, why did my mind instantly go to, I want to make him feel small for doing something like that? And I know that sounds really messed up, but I know that that's how like I grew up. Like everything I did wrong, I was made to feel small. And I don't think like, my parents weren't really aware at all. Like I'll just establish that like, just not very aware of parenting styles and how to approach like the kids and stuff like that. My dad was very like my way or the highway. And, and so I feel a lot of that, but that's not how I want to show up. And that's what I find is the hardest part, is the deeper I go into trying to understand myself, it gets easier to show up the way that I want to show up.
Yeah. It's pretty true. It's kind of like where like I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I've been going to this autism workshop, and they did talk about this idea of rupture, where something happens and you break the connection with your kid. It's only like a small break, but it's like in the moment stuff. It could be something as simple as like you being on their phone when they look up at you. It's a rupture. Line up at your kid for kicking a soccer ball onto the road or into the other kid's face. Rupture. That kind of stuff, and you kind of blow up. And it's reactive because we haven't built like enough skill or space in our life to have the trigger and then a pause and then the reaction, which is so much about what I'm trying to do at the moment. Because my childhood was the same. My childhood was like trigger, reaction, holy shit, get away. It was literally the 3-step process. And sometimes it was like reaction before the trigger. That's the way I was brought up. And that was like, dad did most of the parenting. He was actually, and weirdly, he was probably the strictest, but it turned out he was the most sympathetic and empathetic. Well, my mum was just like eventually coming out saying that she hated kids. Yet she was a teacher, which is hilarious. And she had kids. So it was like that weird dynamic growing up. So we've all had that stuff going through. And there's only 2 of us out of us 4 kids that have had kids. The other 2 don't really want to have them because of our childhood and stuff and other stuff. But yeah, creating that, well, going back to the rupture thing, the biggest thing they're saying in this workshop is with all kids, ruptures are going to happen. Always. It's just like, it's a non-negotiable that it's always going to happen. It's just then looping back. The repair is the really important part, which made a huge imprint on me because I've read that book, The 1 Minute Father, and he talks about it in the sense of like kind of connecting the dots, where he's like, you are going to blow up and you're going to try and teach your kid not to do something silly, even though you've already told them so many times. So you got to have this moment where it's like a very serious conversation. And it's like, you take a minute though. You got a minute. The clock's running. You've got 60 seconds to tell them how disappointed you are in the behavior they've done. And then you pause and chill. And then you come back and for a minute, you tell them how awesome they are as a person. It was just the behavior that they didn't like, you didn't like,
Okay.
which in these days, I would say that's what the behavior is. The action you took is something I really didn't like. It disappointed me and pause, but you're an awesome kid. I love you. You always are fun to hang around. It was just this action I really don't like. Do you think you can fix that? Or maybe not do that next time or whatever. And his concept is if you do that over and over again, it builds up resilience in kids because it gives them boundaries. It also gives them a reason to come back to you.
I love that.
And yeah, like it's a very old book. So there's a lot of dialogue in there that people read and go, no, I don't like this. Because I gave Kat the 1 Minute Mother's book. She's like, I don't like the words he uses. I'm like, yeah, the concept is.
Yeah.
And it's like an infographic at the end. But he tells it through story. And the idea being is like, once you've had your moment, you've had he calls it the reprimand, hence the words that aren't really landing these days. So he's got that. And then I would say rapture, repair. So like discipline, repair. And then the kid can go away and come back later and tell you what they think. And then the idea being is that you're completely open and you won't say anything. They can just tell you, but they've only got a minute as well. And that has actually worked really well. Like it's going to be age appropriate for sleep, but Ruby's now getting much better with her words and sharing what she's thinking. And it does work with her really well. Like if I do a rupture and look back for repair and I'm like, you have a moment and then you can just tell me what you think. And that seems to work really well. So that's how I'm trying to create. It's not really creating the gap. It's giving me that moment of where I can do the parent thing, which is the challenging part. But I don't know what you were like, but my thing was always like, I'd rant. I'd go on for so long about this problem, like the soccer ball in the face. I would talk about like how this is going to come back and bite you in the bum when you turn 20. And I'll just go on these tangents because I just keep going. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird.
I totally get this. This is like, yeah, because you're stuck in a trauma response. And that's looking back on it, that's what I realized. And the crappier that you continue to feel, the more that I'm speaking as you, and at least this is what I realized with the same behavior. It's like, it's so funny, like you say that, like, because what I realized after like reviewing it was the more that I'm yelling, the more that I'm actually feeling like crap. And the more that I'm actually just going to project this onto some 7-year-old kid who's like, what the fuck? Are we allowed to swear, you sir?
Yeah, that's what it was on.
Like, what the F is this guy yelling at me for? Like, they don't understand it. And I've read somewhere that they're like, they don't understand why you're making as big a deal about this. And like, it started dawning on me, but like, at least yesterday, like I made sure Caleb was okay. And I just looked at him and I said, you know, and it was way more calmly than I've ever done it. But I was just like, hey, bud, I was like, this is why we gotta, and he did walk away like a little frustrated, but it was far different. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Cause like, I realized what I was doing. I was like, man, I'm hurting so bad right now because I know that I'm yelling. I don't want to be doing this. And then it's like, I'm continuing to yell.
Right.
And now I'm just going to project all this on him. Like the first thing I did was like, when I got back into the house, I was frustrated and I turned to Stace and I said, I just need to share. I was like, right now, actually, no, I take that back. When I got in, I was really short with her on one thing, and then talk about rupture and repair. So like there was a little rupture between us and she didn't understand it. And then later on I repaired and I was like, listen, I've been on edge because of this other thing too, which I realized. And this is why I'm actually way more frustrated, not so much how I handled Chase, but I still didn't show up the way that I wanted to with Chase. Anyways, I don't know if you were going somewhere. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it was just really interesting to hear you describe exactly like how I was responding. So if you could elaborate on that or wherever you're going with it, it's
it was
cool
kind
to
of
have
just
this
like a
conversation.
statement. I think it was like, I think there'd be a lot of people who would like feel the same way. They'll start a discipline cycle or a rupture repair cycle, but the rupture used to go forever because you're like, okay, I'll implant this lesson where I'll never have to do it again.
Yep.
And I think that's like the mentality. So if I share this story and make it really painful, it's going to be so bad, they won't ever do this thing again. And it doesn't work. And all it does is like, if you do have self-awareness, you do feel like shit afterwards. Where you kind of like I've done it in the car before and it's always like, I can almost always put it back to the thing is like, I'm not present in that moment. I'm already ahead of where I need to be, thinking about something else, the next thing I've got to do, or something that I haven't completed the loop on, where I've come into dad mode. So this is really hard. Like when I was doing stay-at-home daddy, like I had open loops all the time because I'd be starting to work on something and then the little man or the little girl would wake up and I had to go into dad mode. But my head would still be back in the thing I didn't finish the loop on, which my brain struggles with. And it took a lot of time to figure that piece out, is like open loops just stay open in your brain all the time. And it fills up space where you could be having that capacity to take these things that happen with your kids where you want to discipline or whatever, or react in a better way. The more space you have and the more capacity, the big gap you can create between the triggers and then the reactions. And I think, sorry, you go.
No, I just want to echo, we haven't really talked about open loops at all or a lot.
Nice.
And what's really funny is I have that same conversation with the business here with my wife. I said, listen, like there are some things that I have open loops on that it's hard for me to get past, because I think that if, these are like dominoes for me. And if I can just close this loop or knock this domino down, then I can continue to move at the pace that I want to move at. But like having a partner who may not see that like these things are important to me, it's like, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it is, because it's a loop that I need to close in my head. That's really interesting, man. I love this conversation, because everything you're saying is like everything that, and I've been discussing open loops with her and then just talking to it by myself. I'm like, wow, like I have so many like open loops, and this is a big part of the problem. And just figuring out how to close those things down.
I think like I've got to find the book again. There's one, so there's like, this would be the easiest thing we can give people to get takeaways from. Like, some things you're not going to close the loops on because they're big projects and you just can't. They need to get them out of your head anyway. So the one that's like I'm sure it's called The One Perfect Day. I'm pretty sure it's the book. The book's just full of testimonials to get you to go buy their program. So don't really go buy it.
Is it the Perfect Day formula?
No, so that's a different one.
Okay.
So The One Perfect Day is like this couple who like were getting overwhelmed and so much stuff was just piling up and all these open loops of things they needed to do. And then eventually they just put it all on a whiteboard. Like I've got a big gigantic whiteboard over there. You stuck it all on the whiteboard and 24-hour period, you get carers for your kids and you spend 24 hours. It's a challenge to clear the whiteboard.
Oh.
Absolutely. So you get all the resources and everything you need to just get everything done. I love that concept where you just put it all on this whiteboard and you pick a day a month and you can do a 12-hour day. So I'm just going to clear it instead of doing the 24-hour thing. It's just constantly, that there's at least once a month, the stuff that you're putting on your list is going to get done. This whole challenge thing, which is something I want to do in the Faithfuels community, where we have a challenge date every month and everyone jumps in and we can have a Zoom literally running the whole day and people come in like, I just got this done, and they go off and do something else.
I love it.
So that'd be a kind of cool concept. So there's that. It's interesting because, Nick Peterson in the Bumpers book, he talks about having open loops, because when you learn something, you leave it open, it leaves it open to more discussion and learning and stuff like that. So there's kind of like, I played with the idea of having more open loops and all it did was just overwhelm me more.
Well,
So,
is that I think there's a difference though, having open loops about like ideas and things that are evolving and things that you want to complete.
Mm.
That may be able to be completed quickly. I think that's what like I will bother our brain, right? Like one of the examples is I want to make folders ahead of time and I want everything that needs to go in them. I want it all ready because then it's going to prompt me to do the things that I need to do in the order that I need to do them in or that I get to do them in. So that's that's something that we can easily close the loop on. I feel like those ideas, yeah, I think it can be a little different in that aspect, but I would imagine just getting understanding the nuances of what he means and like what we're talking about, you know.
Because it is like deep thinking stuff. And
Yeah.
then I think like there's another book called, hang on. It's a good book. I'm reading it right now, but I'm more blanking on the name. That's my problem too. I'll get into a book and I refuse to choose. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's got this concept of the scanner. Like my personality type is definitely a scanner. I like having a lot of things. I want to do a lot of things. And this book is like almost giving me permission to do that. And it's like even reading, I'm like, I feel really good reading this book. But the idea is like every idea that comes into your head and you're like, this would be such a cool idea. But you were being conditioned not to do those things because you're like, we have to stick to one thing. It's like, get a scrapbook, make it a nice scrapbook. And, like every double page is the idea. So you put the idea at the top and use it as a brainstorming area. And then you just keep filling up this book. And as a book you can go back to, it's called the Scan of the Day book. So every day when you have ideas, you whack it into this thing. I did a digital version of this for ages to kind of close loose, but mainly get it out of my head. So dad mode kicks in for me at like 2:30, just before the kids pick up. So I'll go and sit in the car outside the school. I'll always go early, so I'm there about half an hour earlier. And I just use the Google Keep app. So I usually put the date at the top and I'm like, 3 ideas for health that come to me today. And it's like 3 questions I got asked that I could create content for. 3 ideas for be the man, which is like relationship stuff at home. That falls in the category of be the man. What things do I need to do? What ideas come to me? And same for the perfect average day or the perfect average life. 3 ideas there and 3 questions. As usually I'll do that at the end of most days. And I see a correlation between when I do that and how good I am in the afternoon with the kids, which is like such a simple thing. And I might not even go back to those lists again,
Right.
but it's just getting all that stuff that's rolling around in your head out, which is like shit we all know, but we just don't really do it.
Right.
But it's like a brain dump, but I like collecting those brain dumps and assigning it to like if it's a problem. Typically ideas come because you have come up against a problem that you've got to solve. It's like, what's 3 problems for health, 3 problems for career, 3 problems for being the man, which is like your relationship shit that you want to try and solve. What tools can you plug in place to help you overcome it? And that helps close the loop a little bit. Just let it sit there, gets it out of your head. So you have that capacity, space to hold pause before the trigger.
Right.
Or well, the trigger is going to happen, but hold pause before your reaction, whatever the reaction is going to be.
Yeah. It's taken me a while to figure that out over the past, and a lot of that's been the past year, but I think what's helped is being able to unload some of it so I can see that clear. You know, a big part of it for me was once I got the systems down in this clinic, all of a sudden, man, I felt a lot lighter. You know, now the biggest idea that, man, I love the scrapbook idea. The biggest idea I have right now that I continue to just not do anything about is creating my course and community when it comes to, I mean, I can, you know, it can be nutrition, it can be everything, but I want it to be centered around like lifestyle and movement, which is like all the go-to stuff that we talked about. I want more people exposed to that because I truly believe it's something that can help a lot of people move for a very long time. But that's not what this is about. But I've got that open loop. And
it kind of is.
With that?
It kind of is because it's sitting there.
Yeah.
And it's constantly touching on your brain and you'll see triggers everywhere. Like you'll see someone walking down the street, you're like, that guy did go.
Yeah.
And like, all that stuff will constantly keep bringing it in there. Just pop it in there, and it will stay there until you either do it and test it and see if it doesn't work, or you put it into a project planner and you start taking little chunks to it.
Right.
There's like I think it's called small bets. So we pivoted into a bit of a career talk and like wealth building, but small bets is like, instead of committing and building out this huge thing and then no one buys it, it's like 72 hours, $150, send out offers on ads to test if people want it. If you can't make a sale in 72 hours before you build anything, no one wants it. Or you got to pivot the offer or whatever. Like people could want, you just got to change the way you pitch it. I really like that concept of like that. So taking that from like a career thing, like what's this thing that's rattling around your head that's filling up your brain capacity, which makes you react to shit that's going on? I use the 72-hour rule. Can you do a list? Can you clear it in 72 hours? So stuff on that you can sort of tick off and start getting things away. The things that have been sitting there for so long and you're just like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. You just go, nah, fucking 72-hour rule. Can I knock it? Can I knock it over in 72 hours? Or get something started to get proof that I've done something to it, it's done, or you've done the first big step of that project, just to give you a little bit like, aha. I really like that kind of idea. Because we're both business owners and you're a manifesting generator as well, aren't you? Yeah. So we're both the same. We literally, every time we see a problem, we think of it as a business opportunity. Therefore, we can create something to solve that problem. It's literally how our brain works. We love solving problems. We don't have problems to solve. We get irritable. We get cranky. We get annoying to be around. So we'll go find problems to solve. And typically that's us being irritable and cranky and pissing people off. And then we got something to solve.
Yeah. One being my wife, because now that you say no, because I think like, I hope that, I don't want to offend anybody, and not to just like feel like I'm objectifying her, but what I realized over the last 8 years is that was my approach to her. Was that she has like a problem to solve, and she has a series of problems to solve, and man, it was where I was like leaning towards and heading to, and I was having this conversation with myself, like, I don't know how much of people, I think I had mentioned it. I mean, I've done like these deep healing ceremonies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will tell you that the last one that I was in, the message I received, and this has been really hard for me to like, I don't say fully accept and download, if you will, is that there is nothing broke. So stop trying to fix it. And I definitely think it applies to my wife, but it applies to, I think, us as humans. Like we're not broken per se. And that was really profound for me. It's been really hard to pull back on that, because I see it's like my brother too. I had shared with someone else earlier, like my brother has all these tools and this high potential, and and the same thing I see with my wife, but she has, I don't know, she doesn't talk much, so I don't know where she's at 100%, but the last like 8 years have been like while I'm working on myself, I've been like, oh, she's like a problem. How can I fix it? And they don't enjoy that at all.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, from the healing ceremony you had, there's nothing broke, so don't fix it. It almost feels like it would be mean more like, don't break shit just so you can fix it. Kind of concept, because that's my thing.
Right.
If I haven't got something to work on or try and improve or tweak, that's my thing. I always want to do it. I will break it, so I either have to fix it or move on from it. So I would tangenting away from the parenting is a hard thing, but I think like it's this sort of interesting concept because I think if you know who you are, like we just talked about, if you know who you are, you start lining the things and do things in alignment with makes you feel the most energetic self and the way you enjoy doing stuff. Other things tend to fall in place, which is that whole thing of like the be the man story arc with Space Builders, where it's like, get a deeper connection with you and the relationship with you. So you know who you are and who you want to be. That falls into being a really good partner. And you can show up as the man you want to be for your partner, the one that they want to date again. And then shows up for you as a dad, where you're being the man for them or you're being the dad, whatever, the person they want to come to for support or the things that they need in the most, which is like whatever that is, depending on the age bracket of the kid. It's does definitely like come down to figuring out the type of personality you are. Like that book, and again, I'm blanking on again what my brain refuses to use.
Steve.
And like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and like manifest and generate stuff. If I allow myself to test and play and just experiment with stuff, no, I'm still supporting the family. Because like I've got this like guilty, shamey kind of thing of like Kat's working really hard, and she's bringing home the biggies for the family. And then whatever I do is support that, and I'm looking after the kids the majority of the time, like to schools, the therapy sessions, everything like that. I still feel like I think it's like the conditioning of like the male's meant to be out there being the breadwinner. So I had that stuff in there all the time. And it's been a lot of journaling work to sort of be like, this is where I'm actually the best placed for our family. Because Kat's really good at her career and she's really good at what she does. And she just needs the support for that. And she's really good as like playing the mother role, the supportive role. But I'm very much like, these are the tools and stuff I've got to help facilitate Theo and Ruby to regulate easier, blah, 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 blah. So I end up becoming that guy, the dad who's like, will help them feel good. It's very systemized kind of thing. And sometimes I just need someone to go be hugged, which I'm learning more about. But I think it's like, a lot of it comes down to that, like that almost like fair play card game role, where you put out roles for your family. Like what role are you playing in your family? And being okay with it and putting people in their power. Like you would run a company, everyone's in the positions where they are most effective. And sort of having like a bit of a systemized way to it, which sounds really weird, but I think if you do it that way, things start making more sense. And you can see where the gaps are or what things need to be worked on. Like this week, on the weekend, we had some like Cat's sisters over and we were at the front just chatting. We were at the front eating ice cream and the cat just started gardening. I was like, why don't you just sit down and relax? She goes, I can't relax while I keep seeing this garden here. And she's got in her fair play card game is the garden. That's her role. She never has time to go do gardening. I fucking hate gardening. Like to my core. Like it's one of the most, like I just see it as, sounds really bad, but I see it as the biggest waste of time in my life. But I journaled this week. I'm like, I have to change my story to gardening because I have to be able to support Kate. If I could go out and do 5 minutes a day, she gets back an hour on the weekend, 2 hours on the weekend where she can just relax. And I'm the one with the most time and capacity to do it. So stuff like that kind of awareness to where the triggers are coming from. Because like Sandy said in a video the other day, she was like, had the mum guilt, dad guilt thing, where men have a really good skill of like sitting down and watching the footy on the TV with shit going on all around them, stuff everywhere. And we're focused in, like I had Newcastle United played yesterday morning when I was getting kids ready for school. I put everything out. I was scared. I was like almost like getting them clothes on while watching the soccer. So we have this weird ability where we can just dial it in.
An impressive talent.
Yeah. Yes. Should sell it. The and then Caddy doesn't have that. So it's like, what kind of roles do we have to play? And what kind of things you have to fill in together? And then obviously, like, my thing is like if I hate gardening that much, I'm just going to try and earn some more money so I can just pay a gardener to come do it. That's my thought process. If the shit I really don't like, I'm an entrepreneur. I should just go find more people I can coach, find more people I can help so I can do the thing I love and then pay someone else to do the gardening part. It does take it's a bit of like, that was a bit of a tangent, but you can sort of see how stuff just loads up. And then parenting becomes really hard because you've got all this shit in your head that you don't think you should be doing. And you can't get to it because you're in dad mode or mum mode. And it's like, how can you, what are the things we can do to be most present in our dad and mum mode without the guilt? I think those tools are kind of helpful, like the brain dump, listing out all the stuff you want to get done, the 72-hour rule.
Yeah. And let's not, I don't want to make the assumption that, make sure you're taking care of yourself too. Like, this is the one thing, if I could drive home with the parents that I work with, is you will show, like, all the stuff that we're talking about is still going to be there, but it will be heavier if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
It'll be like or you just maybe not as conscious as you want to be, like, whether you realize it or not. Like, take care of yourself, exercise, eat right, do those things first, because your body will direct a lot of this. Like, your body is going to tell your mind a lot of things, and if you're not taking care of yourself, then maybe subconsciously, like, there's other things going on that's just going to make the stuff that we're talking about, I guess the best word is heavier, but I want to say worse. It's or just harder to navigate if you're not taking care of yourself. So make sure you're doing that.
Kind of like, I notice with myself, like, I have to train every day. Like, I do this 3-on 1-off thing, but generally it's like I do something every day. Even on the day off, I'll go hunt for the 10K steps with Simon. So I've been training been a coach since 2010. And there's moments where I've fallen off the wagon with the training stuff. And I would turn into an irritable shit, and everything, I react to everything so much quicker and negatively than I would when I'm training. And I use it like an analogy, like, kind of numbs me down because my energy is like kind of rampant. If I don't train every day, I'm a hyper, and people get uncomfortable with how much energy I have, and the kids do. And if I can't release the energy, it comes out in actions where I just react to stuff. I get crazy and just a irritable shit. I am a sarcastic person. I get super sarcastic, as that's not good to do around Theo because he's super literal. He'll take my sarcastic stories and tell everybody. So a lot of it is like, training for me is to take the edge off, to make the dad mode stuff smoother. And then, but the guilt stuff is always going to be there. You're using time to work on yourself. Always going to be there. Just change the story around it.
Right.
If you can show that you're showing up as a better dad or mum because of the work you're doing on yourself, it will help shift the guilt story. It's still going to be there because it's part of our human nature.
Right.
But if you got proof that you are showing up better because of it, the guilt is less. And it's always like that whole be flexible to the approach and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, this has been cool.
There was something I wanted to expand on something. Well, again, the parallels in your story and mine. What did you just recently say? Oh yeah, as far as like everything, like there might be chaos all the way around, but if we had like if we need to like, and I think it's like it could be us distracting ourselves, it could be us trying to cope through, things that are difficult inside the mind. But yeah, like the biggest thing I've noticed even over the last 6 months is I don't notice the house as like dirty as she does.
Mm.
Like that, it's just weird. Like, but now I am noticing it, and it's like, it, well, I actually let me take that back. I've always noticed it. I just never let it bother me as much as
Yeah.
it does now, and I'm glad that I'm letting it bother me because now I will take action instead of sitting there, or like to help. I don't say to help, but part of my things is I love doing the laundry and the dishes. They're
Yeah,
mindless
it's
activity.
fine. Yeah.
They're mindless activities that
Yeah.
make it feel like I get accomplished. So now I'll watch like a Netflix show. I'll do The Walking Dead while I'm folding laundry. I was kill
Mm.
two birds with one stone. But in the past, I would have just sat there. I would have never asked if like things needed to be like if she needed help or if laundry needed to be switched over. Like all those things, like it didn't dawn on me. I would just sit in my own stuff because
Yeah.
I feel like I'm carrying so much, and then, the football game or, soccer game or whatever it is just allows for us to drown, you know, like drowned out even more. And then,
Yeah.
the worst thing about it is you come out of it and then I think I have more guilt and shame having sat there, for extended periods of time. But yeah, I think it all matters. I don't think we went on too many tangents. I think,
Yeah.
and again, I think parenting can be approached from so many different um I kind of touched on the spiritual route. We touched on just us. We didn't even get into whether, like parenting styles and things like that.
Mm.
We more so just, I think we went down the route of how can we as individuals, take that responsibility to show up in the way that we want to show up. And for
Mm.
you and I, our stories are really similar, and that's where the conversation went. And I imagine if anybody wants to chime in or send us a message or get on the next podcast and talk about their experience as a parent and what they've gone through, we would love to have you, because this stuff's really important for us. I think we touch on it just about every podcast that we can because it is
Yeah.
important for us as fathers. Like we clearly had something go on in our life that we want our kids to have a different experience. And I think I always have a hard time acknowledging myself. But I think that's really cool for both of us.
Mm.
And kudos to us and kudos to any parent out there that wants, I don't want to say the best for their children because who knows what that is, but wants to create an experience for their children, um, that they can look back on and maybe not be in our position where it was like, yeah, these things I want to change and not everything's going to be perfect, but at least like we can. I'm having a hard time discussing it. I think I want my kid at the end of the day to be like, you know what? I had this really cool person teaching me about life.
Mm.
I know he's not perfect. We all aren't. But I felt like he did his best to provide those tools. And I'm hoping that all kids can get to that point and feel that way. Not all, but a lot of them can get to that point and feel that way about their parents who are really trying. Um, Even though we're also acknowledging that there were shortcomings, if
Mm.
you will. So, all that to say that, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah.
I think
And
it's like, so I had a thought too, and it's gone now. I would be like, we're so big on like collecting proof. So quick brain dumps at the end of the day of like, how did you show up as a parent today? Is a good question. And where
yeah,
were you supportive? And where would you like to be better? And then the next day it would get better and then better. I'd be like 1% better every day. It's like a good question to ask. And the other part was be like, when we were the top of the potty was parenting is hard, or is it? So the reason why I said that is if we do walk around with the parenting is hard story, parenting is going to be hard. So my thing, a little bit of a story. we lived in Wodonga. Kids go to St. Francis Primary School, which was like maybe 5 minutes down the road, 10 minutes down the road. We moved over to Albury, over the other side of the border. So now it's like a 20-minute trip. First world problems. I know people living in cities travel way more to take their kids to school. 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. It's the same music every single morning there, every single afternoon coming back. And at first, it was like, in my head, I had this story of like, this is shit. I'm literally losing an hour every day. We got a new car. First world problems, got a new car. I can't listen to my podcast anymore. Used to have the music on for the kids and I listen to my podcast. Now it's just, we always listen to the same thing. And for the first week, I was just off. I was cranky because I was like, I fucking just don't want to do this driving thing. I had to journal it every single day and write about it and change the story. And now I just don't register. It's just cool. We sit in the car, we listen to music. I put the music on, we drive home. But I had to change the story because I was getting worse and worse and worse and more angry about it. And now it's just like more opportunity. Just changing the story. I had to keep changing the story. It's like the kids are at the age where they want to hang out with me. They want to talk to me and we want to have fun. So this is the opportunity to soak it up. Because they're going to get to an age where they just don't want to hang out with me anymore. It's a given. So might as well take it while I can get it.
I love that.
So changing the story. So what is the story you're telling yourself about whatever it is? What's the truth? And then what are 1 to 3 reframes you can use instead? Which is that whole of like, we get the trigger. When we don't have that knowledge of the gap, it's like trigger, reaction, shitty outcome. What we want to do is that trigger, our reaction is a switch. We want to switch from the shadow self, which is the bottom, we want to turn a light on to our hero self. And then what is the way we want to think? And then the way we want to think will live out in our behaviors. And just practice it over and over and over again.
I love that. So now after the end of this podcast, I'm not sure if it's parenting that's hard or, or it's more so just understanding who I am. And then,
which is it's so my thing. Like, I think if I'm trying to be someone I'm not, parenting is really hard.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out who I am, which is a squirrel brain who loves trying lots of shit and fucking things up, failing forward and passing those tools on other people and being in and having my hands on a lot of different things and trialing and error on a lot of different things and having these conversations. These are all things that I like doing. Like, I love having these kind of deeper like conversations. If I do that stuff, I feel good and everything sort of flows from there. When I try and live in a world where I'm not that type of person, that's when shit is really hard. Again, stories though. I say I hate gardening. I'm going to change my story.
Yeah. You know what? But sometimes you just don't like it. Like, you can change the story around it, or or it can just be. I think if it means something enough to you that it's gonna like create value in your life, then and even if it's via cat like having more time to herself, then hell yeah, that's something to look at, right? And it's something to try to attempt to change the story on. But there may not just be anything to have to change, because I think it's also come down to accepting who you are. And don't really like gardening, it's not cool, but you can change the story even while you do something you don't like. There's a lot of there's few things that I probably do because she enjoys them, and I love seeing her get that that excitement and joy out of it. So why not?
Yeah, this is that kind of thing, like being an adult, really. Yeah, sometimes we got to do shit,
especially in
might not need lots to do.
Yeah, especially being in a relationship. So
compromise.
Yeah, to a degree.
That was good.
I like it.
Books.
1 minute
a day. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
The concept's really, really cool in it, which is like list everything down, get it all done in a 24-hour window. And then, again, blanking on got to open the Refuse to Choose.
Yeah.
That's a really banging book. And then listen to all our other podcasts because all these podcasts are all about basically trying to feel good.
Yeah.
So go listen to them one by one.
Listen.
Start from the beginning and send us comments.
Yes, please reach out. Yeah. So,
All right.
cool. I love it.
Anything exciting coming up for you?
Thanksgiving this week. And I am officially the 2nd grade Westport travel soccer coach. So
Yeah, nice. That's cool.
taking
Second
over.
grade.
2nd grade, yeah.
So your sports system's so much better over there. We don't have a sports system like that. We just got weekend sport.
Yeah. So it depends on who's involved. So, right. I don't know if you want to end this or not, but if people want to learn more about the soccer in Westport, Massachusetts, but, so actually a couple years ago or last year, there was a guy who was trying to create a travel team, and it was just like the local towns. This isn't like one of those teams that is connected to like Juventus or something like that, and so he just went around, he told the league what he was doing, and he just went around and he picked up some kids, and some happened to be 2nd grader. Well, at the time, 1st graders and 2nd graders. And the year before Chase joined, and I'm not suggesting that Chase was the reason for this, but it was just the year before, like they lost a lot of games. Like they weren't like all that great, coach would tell us. And then, I mean, he's done such a phenomenal job with this mixed group of 2nd and 3rd graders. Well, I think because of the rec league, which is the weekend stuff, technically, where everybody can join, I think some of the parents were like, wow, these kids are really good. They stand out. Well, let's join. Let's try to maybe develop these kids. And so there was enough players where to the league, it made sense to split them. So Chase was actually playing up with like the 3rd graders along with 2 other boys. But now that they've split them, the other coach, his son is on the 3rd grade team. So they needed someone to step up. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, it's nothing crazy right now. We'll play some of the local towns and whatnot. But I'm excited and looking forward to it.
You gonna get a whistle?
I think I might. I'm doing like, but I'm gonna do a lot. Like I want to talk to some people, and I want to do some like research about like, some of the more effective like coaching, styles and communication and things like that. And then I know they're they're in 2nd grade, so making competitions and games out of things is going to be important. But I also I think this maybe it'll hint on a lot of what we talked about today with like just parenting, but being present, understanding like what the kids need in that moment, but also like being present and not really being like this authority where they like should be scared of me, but someone that they want to look up to and learn from, and I think some of the best teachers and coaches that I had, like, I was like, man, this person seems to have it all together, and it shows through the way that they're communicating and the way that they're showing up to practice. And that's how I want to like, quote unquote, be remembered, after the season. So we'll see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's good practice. Like if you can use it as like a tool of like holding space for that many kids, and you can do it for your own.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. So if you have any pointers and strategy, things you can send my way too.
Yeah, we'll talk offline about it.
Yeah.
But there's like tangent, but not really. I get asked every year to coach. Every year, like I've been asked to coach the ladies soccer team, and asked to coach the 35 soccer team, and I keep saying no because when I did say yes, this is how my brain works. Halfway through, I'm like, the system works. I'm done. Let's move on.
Where's my assistant coach?
Yeah. It's kind of, so I love being assistant and helping on the weekends and jumping in and doing whatever I need to do. But I think I've learned that I can't, but I want to be the head coach. So hats off to you, dude. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that nobody else wanted to like step in to be the actual head coach and make the commitment. A lot of I think dads want to like help out, which is cool too. But yeah, I mean, I actually was an assistant coach to the local community college women's basketball team. And I think one of the things I'm really concerned about is like my expectations.
Yeah.
Because I went into that with very high expectations, and also I had my own trauma and stuff that I had worked on a lot. And it was not a good, in my mind, it
Yeah.
wasn't a great experience because I've played at the level that I've played at. So I'm expecting certain things out of people, but like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are seventh or second graders like capable of, what is possible, and just, trying to figure out that first and
Yeah.
like reframing my mind, because the other thing I've noticed when it comes to parenting and my kids, I have these like super high expectations. Like,
Yeah.
you should understand this and know this. And, like you had talked about, I just spent like a good 5 minutes, like going into this like rationale. And it's like, these kids don't understand that. And not that they don't
Yeah.
understand. Let me take that back. They don't want that. Their brains are not interested in you trying to rationalize why
Mhm.
something should or shouldn't happen. So, yeah.
So on
Anyway.
that, there's like the Risky Kids program, which is for neurodiverse kids or any kid, but mainly built for neurodiverse kids. They like teach 2 things in 45 minutes. And when you teach, it's like take a knee so they're focused or eyes on me or whatever. And then it's like you teach the concept in like 1 to 2 minutes. Like, what is the thing you're going to teach? Show them, then they do it. And they do it for like 5-10 minutes. And then there's like 5 to 10 minutes freestyle. Then it's come back, take a knee, teach the thing, 5 to 10 minutes. That I wanted to do that in our mini roos coaching for soccer. Because I see, but their groups are like one coach to 40 something kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, just need more coaches.
Yeah. We'll have to talk
It's like-
about this because I only have like 9 kids. So I think it'll be something that'll be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect. Because that's the Risky Kids program. They have up to like at the most 8. And it gives you that focus spot. And there's 3 classes with kids in the same room and they're able to get that focus and talk to them, which works really well. But yeah,
Cool.
I'll send through resources. But anyway, everyone,
Awesome.
thanks for listening.
Yeah.
It's a good potty. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.